Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are. And if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to this on Spotify, um, hello. And welcome to the third episode of the Late Bird podcast. I think I need a new intro. Today I have with me Rutwik, a poet, a writer, a storyteller, and an actor based in Mumbai. I met him a while back, maybe a couple of years back, um, on Instagram. Not met him, but I got to know him via Instagram, and we stayed together, stayed connected for a while, and now I decided that for the third episode, I need uh, to talk about India, and I need to talk about what is happening in the political scenario and what are the artists in India doing at this moment to tackle that entire thing. Um, so this episode is about that. It's about poetry. It's about writing. It's about Rutwik talking about his story and also having the intense discussions about politics, spirituality, and governance, if you may. So, um, I still think that podcast is like the only medium left in our society now that is still not corrupted by any outside influence, like the social media sites and whatnot. Um, because visual and many other forms of how we consume media, which is print and video, most of it is kind of corrupted, and you cannot have debates and discussions about things anymore. It's extremely difficult in this environment. So, having said that, this is the new episode, and I hope you enjoy it. So yeah, get into it. Yeah, we can start with basically, or why do you write?
Yeah, no, I did a poem about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I write so that I can express myself. It seems very obvious, but the things. I mean, you hear all these filmmakers talk about the process of screenwriting. As like I think I heard Scorsese talk about it some time ago in one of his interviews, where he said it's that fleeting moment when you have ideas and it could go the next moment, and you writing is just capturing those ideas. And I started writing on a blog when I first started. I was 15, and
Oh.
I'm like, the name is also very embarrassing. The name of the blog, I won't put it out there. But for 2 solid years, it gave me a portal to be myself and talk about things I wanted to talk about. It had think pieces and poems and quotes for no specific audience. I used to get 2 views every time I posted, most likely from my friends.
Hey,
But I
that's
was
how we
happy.
started.
That's how you start.
Yeah.
But i- in like during that time, I found myself in a comatose, and I'm like, I really enjoyed this 1 hour, these 2 hours, and I discovered something new about myself while doing this, and that's a precious time. That is why I write, and I mean, I could write as a hobby, but having it be your profession is a whole different ball game, right? And
Yeah,
after
yeah.
it hits you after you graduate. How is this real? And like I have the story where I sat for an interview for
Mm.
this digital marketing firm. So I did a business major. I majored in marketing, and so I wanted that. I thought, but I did theater and poetry all through my college,
Mm.
and
And which
and I
college were
sat
you in?
in NMIMS uh,
Oh, yeah, okay.
in Bombay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did a BBA, and I was like, and I sat for the interview, and the timings were a little like American timing. So we started in the afternoon and ended at night. And
Mm.
all through the interview, I was thinking like there were a couple of rounds. Like there was a test and a GD and then an interview, and I was thinking, man, this is not what I want. So I tried to sabotage the interview, but they just kept pushing me to the next round. Uh,
Okay.
and the next day they called me to their office, and I didn't go. And I had this huge meltdown the day before. I got home and I'm like, I sat my family down. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I want to do something creative, and thankfully I
Yeah.
have like supportive parents, and they said, then please go ahead. But it was me talking to myself because I needed that. And when I asked myself what I want to do for, like, I don't have a pin on it. Oh, I want to write, or I want to act, or I want to direct. I want to do something creative,
Mm.
and that's all I had done for the last 5 years. So that's how I knew that this is what I wanted, and
But it's quite
that's
quite
the
an
long answer.
early start, to start at 15 and start writing on a blog or anything. It's quite an early start. Like thinking of myself, I didn't even know what I was going to do, and most of the people, like that's the difference that we have between someone living and studying in Pune or Mumbai or Delhi or any metropolitan city, and someone coming from a smaller city. Yeah. Like here like right now I'm living in a really small city, village, whatever. Here you don't have that kind of a surrounding, and that kind of a society which encourages you to do it. So it's actually good that that happens in Mumbai, because I felt that when I came to Mumbai for the first time, coming to Mumbai and watching buildings that were 4 or 5 stories tall, were like, wow, what? This is the same world I live in. It was so completely different to what I have seen. So yeah, it's pretty good that you can get a start at 15. So what changed? Like what were you going through in your college years? Like was the environment supportive, or were people interested in what you were writing, or you just said, to hell with them, I'll just keep doing and let's see where it goes?
The environment was very supportive, and like you make a very good point about the metropolitan environment, because it does make a difference. And today I have more friends in the creative industry as opposed to someone say in corporate, which wouldn't be the case 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And it does make a difference. And I believe I got to work with some really good people, and some really good art collectives, who made me believe that you're not half bad. And as artists, way too often we are stuck with the imposter syndrome, and
Yeah.
just on a regular basis I call myself a fraud. Uh, but
We're
it really
pretty,
matters.
we are.
Yeah. It really matters when someone says, hey, not bad, man.
Yeah.
So I think open mics really helped.
Right.
And the performance bit really helped, because I stopped writing on my blog after 2 years, because I'm like, this is, I feel I have saturated this feeling of maybe the I just felt the audience needs to be a greater part of my process, because that is
Mm.
an important part.
Right.
It finished that feedback loop,
Yeah.
and so open mics were really really good. I remember it was the 1st of July 2017, my first open mic. So one of my friends from like junior college, she was organizing it, and she said, "Ki, hey, I know you write on your blog, so do you want to come?" And
Yeah.
I wrote my first two performance pieces that day,
Right.
and I performed it in front of a couple of friends, a couple of strangers, and I felt heard. And that day on that stage, I'm like, man, this is something I want to do way more often. So I started doing that, and and again, the place that we live in does make a difference, because I at that time the scene was booming, and there were open mics happening. There were uh, uh, small art collectives who were looking to collaborate, and I started doing that, and the support was great, honestly. And then I put out a couple of YouTube videos, which thankfully got a good amount of traction, so I could continue doing this. I started being on
Oh, by the
curated
way,
live. Yeah.
if anyone doesn't know, Rutwik has been in a filter copy video which has 1.2 million views, and his spill poetry. I was just checking on YouTube, the random facts, but his one of his spill poetry videos has 83,000 views. So that's good, man. That's good. You don't see the same analytics, logistics, if you're in England, because it's not the same kind of audience that you have over there. We all think that in the West, everyone performs so well and everyone goes to the open mics, but there's not many people in the West. There's a lot of people in India who listen to the work and how it happens. So what I was going to ask before this is, writing is one thing, right? Like, you have ideas, you have thoughts, you write it down. But then going out and performing, acting it out in front of a crowd, that's a completely different ballgame. It's not anywhere near to writing. It's not anywhere near to just putting down your thoughts, because you have to accept what the critique is going to be from the people. So how did you merge into that?
So so my first open mic is when I really performed. But like, I used to do all these elocutions and declamations in school. So there was the foundation of being on stage and being comfortable with addressing an audience. But it's a whole different ballgame. Like, so say storytelling or poetry is different than doing theater. Theater is very different from film or doing ads. And it requires different things, but it is so fulfilling, because say when I perform poetry, I know I've seen people smiling earnestly, and it's striking a chord with them while I'm on stage, and I can see the difference in real time. While I'm on theater, maybe for say 30 minutes, 1 hour, I have been in that character, and for that time I felt as if I was the character. It's different being in front of the camera, because sometimes it can feel isolating. But right now I have to audition a lot from home, because after the pandemic, you have to send self tests. It's not going to Aram Nagar where all the auditions happen quite as much. But it's jarring, but then it's also liberating, because I'm like, I can do another take. So let's try to play with this. So all of these diametrically different mediums of performance all add different things to me. And I know, just writing is one thing, but performance, you have to elevate it. It's like the process of filmmaking. Right? Writing takes it to this level, the actor interprets it, the director has a certain vision, the editor fine tunes it, and then you have a product. I know it's scary at times. I remember I was doing this one performance piece with this really close friend of mine. He was playing the guitar. I was doing spoken word for this theater festival, and we were opening like it was at Prithvi Theatre, and we were outside. It was like a 10-minute set. So before the main play began, we were supposed to engage the audience. And we met with the artistic director of the company 2 days before the performance. And he gave a lot of ideas. I get what you're trying to do with this. But so I have this poem called Rat. Okay. It's about... So you can check it out later, but it's basically about me killing a rat who's entered my house, and
Nice.
the thoughts that I have after.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, and it really troubled me for a while. And while we were doing that, like when we were rehearsing it, the artistic director, he was like, okay, I get your story and I get where you're going with this, and the guitar's all too well, but what is the guitar? Is it the rat?
Mm.
Is it trying to compete with the rat? Is it what is the picture you're trying to paint here?
Right.
And that gives you a completely different perspective. And when we got down and we were going back home, my friend asked me, do you think it's good, like what like our performance, do you think it's good? And I said, we'll try to do our best, but all we have to do is go out there and do our act. And so much of art is just about doing and not keeping it to yourself, or just your diary or just your gallery, and just
Mm.
putting it out there in the world and hoping that it
Someone
gets
sees it,
refined over.
someone hears it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
How
so
like with you, but like with your photos, and I personally love your work. But how's the process like? Do you are you very self-critical? Or do you curate a lot?
um i- so it's different with different projects, right? When you're doing something like a long-term documentary project, for example, then most of the times what happens is you're out working on a project for, let's say, 1 month, 2 months. So there's not a lot of time to self-critique yourself when you're actually working on the project. So, for example, when I was in Scotland. I was in Huntly, Scotland, and I was doing a project on. So I was with Christian monks. I was living with them for a while. Then I was with a street philosopher called Jerry. I was with him for a while. So most of the time it was about the dialogue that I was having with them. In the end, what happens is people see pictures and people see something that you have written about the project. But most of the times it's about the experience of the entire journey that you have taken over there outside. Because what I find, the difference between let's say performing something in front of an audience or performing something for a movie or something like that, um, it's completely different, or similar in ways, because when you're out there doing your working on a long-term documentary project, you have to act out a completely different personality than what you're not. Because
Yeah.
if you show what you are, then that's game over. You cannot bring in your views in front of them. You cannot say I'm religious, I'm atheist, I'm this, that, anything. You have to be so neutral, uh, and that is so different to whatever many other people do. Many other people in professions like art have to work in. And then after all of this is done, then we have to go to the studio and then start looking at the pictures and then see what is right, what is wrong, you know which picture will make sense, which won't make sense, even though you like something so which is so dear to your heart, and you think that this moment is so precious to me. You have to think of the audience who doesn't give a shit about that picture, so you have to just dump it. And that's heartbreaking, but that's how it is. But that's just yeah, that's just photography, long-term photography. But then there's studio portraiture, where you bring in people and then you're doing something. Then there is then I write, and my writing is so weird that not a lot of people read that, but the people who read that are like, where are you coming from? Like, this is so weird to talk about in this day and age, which you do very nicely through your poetry. Because the things that I try to come up with, which are long essays, because that's the only way that I can write in uh, you try to squeeze it in 2-3 minutes, and I like that. Like, I like that you can reach a wider audience because of that. and at the same time that I cannot. For example, I'll share with you something, um, and then I want you to if you have something, some poetry or something, then I want you to bring out anything that you have interesting. But I'll read something out to you. So
Yes.
this was a short essay, poem, whatever you want to call it, on Great Britain. So when I came back from Britain, many people thought that I was doing the wrong thing. It's easy when you're in London, when you're in Edinburgh, when you're in Birmingham to walk up the ladder, and it's super easy. And I knew a lot of people over there. I knew a lot of curators and critics, and many of my friends are artists over there. But there's something that is missing in the society, in the Western society, and it's coming to the Eastern society now that I see it. But this was about the entire thing, right? Okay, so yeah. On Great Britain, a couple of months have passed. I left England absolutely disgusted at the state of affairs. I tried talking to everyone about the discrimination that the third world citizen faces every day. A few people listened, seriously, and the majority laughed it off, saying, "Why are you here then?" I revisited my old diaries, where only thing that I mentioned was a wish to study. Never did I wish to be a slave to a society. People have a specific way of looking at Indians, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Chinese, and the rest who do not belong here. Yes, we aren't privileged in the sense that you enjoy freedom and law. I asked my Bolivian friend why he gets scared when he listens to a police siren. Well, he has no clue. I have no clue. It's as if it is ingrained in our minds. Right when we step our foot onto the British soil, a 4-hour line at the border control awaits us when we do not come from the so called first world. Extra checkups, cross questioning. I thank God every day that my name is not Muhammad or Abdul. I can only imagine what they must be going through, the fear, the terror. Now, why is the human society so corroded with labels that define an organism of its status? I never chose to be that label. I never chose to be an Indian or a guy who knows how to make butter chicken. I do not blame anyone though, because I know where this conditioning comes from. The frequent mentions of Indians in movies, history channels. The so called Third World was a case study for anthropologists throughout the past 200 years. You unknowingly suffixed yourself with great, right? Everything that an Indian or an African does is a doing of a savage, a primal man. You were civilized. I do not want to be an Indian, nor am I a nationalist. I think that idea is a flawed one to begin with. Now, India faces with a maligned education system left behind by the masters, a small fleet of white officials ruled an extremely diverse and populous subcontinent, a psychological manipulation at best. Now, what is left in England now? A bunch of intellectuals trying to restore the sense and logic, and on one hand, and a massive crowd of ignorant aristocrats and aristocrat pleasing assholes on the other. In an earlier essay, I said Britain is a country that breeds its own population, that loves its aristocratic masters. I realized that I was far from wrong. Maybe the Skinner box was never meant to contain the minds of mere pigeons. Now, this psychological degradation of human organism has caused a massive dip in the intellect in the West, where the universities have only become a place to increase the gap between the rich and the poor. What a day to witness when philosophers are questioning the legitimacy of consciousness itself, and scientists and technologists are doing everything in their will to further a narrative that combines everything with politics. A new church state synchronization is being built ground up in bright daylight. 1,000 apps to calm your mind after a hard day's work. Your mother would be on her deathbed, and you would be thinking of getting permission from the boss to get a leave in the fear of getting fired. Don't worry, lad. He won't give a shit and won't waste time to appoint a new bot in your place. The work we do nowadays is absolutely worthless, working for big brands and labels for mere pennies. Only a handful enjoy the benefits of workers working tirelessly for them to actually enjoy their benefits. A society of slaves is what it is, which likes the job at a boot store somewhere in a small town, a complete disruption of family values. You have something to learn from the old Christian values: morality, ethics, responsibility, not towards a fucking company, but towards your own fellow beings. What a petty society that laughs on those who want to connect with themselves, with nature, laughs on those who choose to stay happy in this truly messed up world, because happiness is a sin, eh? A plethora of work on mindfulness, which is just empty words by the ones who have never attained bliss. You guys throw the word karma in your literature as if it is sold by kilos on the high street. You hate thinkers. You hate anyone who thinks. You malign the word consciousness by using it every day without understanding it. To the younger generation, try staying sane for an hour without your Facebook feed. Try staying sane for an hour without using your TikTok feed. Try actually meeting people with your heart. Feel what they feel for once. Try not talking about Katie's wild encounters and what James did in that club that night. Try not lying to yourself for once. To the elder generation, I know you're confused. What the actual hell went wrong? Internet. Do you know what your kids are getting taught in the schooling of quick snaps and fucking leave? No wonder Huxley envisioned this future. Well, Lenina has 4 boyfriends and still wants to have a couple more. Huxley got the word soma from ancient Indian literature. The gods drank it. You want to have soma without being God first. No wonder Orwell envisioned a future of surveillance. No wonder Turing was fascinated by the thought of thinking machines. We're all feeding it today, and giving it what it needs. In turn, it is feeding us bit by bit every day through algorithms. It is changing our most basic human instinct, that is to think. The future of humanity is bleak if we keep doing this. Oh, Britain, it is not just you now. The society of alphas, betas, gammas, deltas, epsilons surrounds every inch of this world now. Thank you, though. The alphas call on sustainability and morals as they wear their furred coat while they house illegal animals bought from the black market somewhere in Africa. The epsilons try to cut down on their already low diet by eating artificially manufactured potatoes and meat, and the BBC calls it an excellent feat of human ingenuity. What a show. It is almost perfect to watch from a distance now. That was. Thank you,
man. I loved it. The rage, and you talk about such a variety of topics, and the rage and the capitalistic machinery, and it's just so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I really like that line about 100 apps trying to calm you down, and how disposable we are in the modern workplace. And man,
I try telling this to many of my friends that you won't understand what the West has become if you don't stay there and get merged with their political system. And I worked for a local political leader who was running from a local election, and I helped create his campaign over there. It was small. It was not that big. It had like 5,000 residents in that area. But because of that, I learned how it is done and how everything is being manipulated and how Facebook is being used and how Instagram is being used and how money, when it's thrown in the right direction, so you can shift and tilt any election that you want and any campaign or whatever. But this is what the West has become, and this is the same model that is coming to India. But the only problem is India is like 20-30 years behind of what the West has become. Yeah, people are literally like robots in the West. If you don't if you see it from an outsider's perspective, then you'll be like, wow, what has happened to this? Why is everyone just walking with their heads down? And what has happened to the society? Where's the talks? What changed? And then there's Scotland, which is completely different. Scotland, you go out and everyone's saying hello, and everyone is it's different. I don't know what it is, but this is where technology and industrial revolution and everything started, and this is what they have come to, and this is the same thing being imported in India, and I'm scared.
It is scary. It is scary. Can I read you one of my poems?
Yeah, go, man.
So you spoke about how my poems are crisp. So I'd like to read you one that is. And I mean, I haven't put this out anywhere because I feel
exclusive. This is an exclusive.
I just feel like there's a certain amount of rage and some it is personal to me. And also, so an interesting bit of context about this. So this was almost thrice its size when I wrote the first draft. But I said the idea does not deserve so many words. It deserves less. It deserves to be succinct and for it to sting you. And that is the purpose of this idea.
Right.
And that's what I went ahead with. I think this is the third draft. And I know we'll talk about this more after I read it.
Okay.
Okay. Does the government owe my family reparations for all the disagreements, for all the dinner table arguments about who was right and who was wrong? No, hear me out. There have been plates that have been broken and tears that have been shed when having political discussions. How do I explain to my family that questioning the authority and supporting it are not two sides of the same coin? How is it that all of us live under the same house, yet all of us refuse to see the same things? I can only point my finger at WhatsApp propaganda and disinformation campaigns that spew hate more poisonous than venom. Every day, there are things we say that cannot be taken back. Every day, I see my family breaking apart bit by bit. So, who will make the amends? Who will pay for this abuse and the damage that it is causing? After all, someone has to be held accountable. But who am I to ask for reparations when there are millions who need it more?
Wow. Wow.
And I mean, the apparent divide between, say, an older generation and ours, and how we see movements and protests and politics and what is fair and what is not, what is acceptable and what is not. It is so at different ends. Yeah, I feel this poem came out of that angst.
There's a Canadian, I don't know if I could call him a philosopher, but his writings are more of a philosophical nature. His name was Marshall McLuhan, if you've heard of him. He basically wrote a book, I'm guessing, which was to say the medium is the message. The thing that we are talking through, that is the message. So our political institutions and the way we used to connect to each other and everything is changing. And this was written in 1945, right? Like, or 50 something. And this is way before TVs and phones and anything came into existence. So he wrote this entire book, which is so similar to what you and I are talking about right now, because in the end, this is not about like, why do we write, or why do you write? It's not about where I can put this and how many people can listen to me. It's about what the fuck is happening and why is no one actually looking at what is happening. And that's why we write. It's not because we need more people to listen to us. It's because there's something happening in the world around us and we cannot stay quiet. The only antidote to obedience is freedom. There's nothing else. You have to be so completely free that you can actually say those words out loud, that this is what is happening and I'm going through this right now and I need to speak about this. That is why we write, and that is why your poem is so in link with what is happening in Indian society right now. Like, I say to my dad every time, because so my dad works in a chemical factory. So he's a manager in a chemical factory, and he just retired like 2-3 months back. And he started working when he was like 20, 21, because that's what happens when you're in a smaller village or town. You just try to get your family together as soon as you can, and that is the entire thing. So he went and started working when he was 21, and since then he's 52 now. Since then he's working nonstop, tirelessly, every single day. And what all information he's getting is through news and is through TV, and now more from social media, from WhatsApp and whatnot. And how can you have a clear, honest view on what is happening in the world if you don't get enough time to actually look at what is happening in the world? Because everything is happening virtually now. Like, nothing is Nothing is happening. You're not going to some rally, or you're not meeting people anymore. Everything is happening virtually. Every opinion you're getting is happening virtually. So I had this talk with my dad at one point, like, uh, every we have to think that we don't have democracy in our own house at this point. To have different opinions, to have differing views in our own house is impossible at this point. So how are we going to bring about a change in this country if that can't even start in our own house? So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And I feel the worst part about this entire endeavor of consumption of media and calling out what is problematic is also it reaching a stage. I feel that's the worst, where it reaches a stage where we're like, okay, I don't know what's the truth at all.
Yes, yes,
And maybe nothing makes sense.
exactly.
And that is such a worry of mine, that as a society we reach there, because we can call it out that I see what this news network is doing. They're using this tonality to manipulate us in this manner. Oh, I see
Right.
what this Twitter handle is doing. They're purposefully plugging in this word. But
Mm.
after a point, it gets so exhausting. They're like, maybe it's me. Maybe I don't know enough,
Yes.
and it gets so overwhelming. And I feel. Have you seen Don't Look Up, which came out in
No,
December?
no, no.
I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Adam McKay made it. Have you read about it?
No, I haven't. No, no.
Uh, Great. I feel amazing for you, because you're going to see it for the first time.
What is
Uh,
called? Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up. So
Okay.
it has DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Meryl Streep, Timothy Chalamet, and Adam
Uh-huh.
McKay's directed. And it's about a comet approaching the Earth, and
Right.
Jennifer Lawrence and DiCaprio are the two astronomers who can sense the pattern. And they say in 6 months the comet's going to come and it's going to hit the Earth and it's going to obliterate everything. And they go to the president of the United States, and that really starts a turn of events in the political sphere, in the media, about oh, will it hit us, is it real, is it not? And there are hashtag campaigns, and the Ariana Grande is a musician who makes a song about it, and where our priorities as an audience, as a society, lie. And I feel it addressed a lot of rage and uncertainty that we as a generation are feeling during this time.
Mm.
And they wrote it before the pandemic, where Streep plays a Trump-like figure.
Right.
And after the pandemic, it became like the flaws and the gaps in our society became so much more evident that it rings true. And how. I'd
Yeah.
highly recommend you to.
Okay. I'll watch it. But coming back to the point on post-truth, or coming to a point where you kind of start questioning everything that is actually happening in the world right now. Uh, think of what has happened in the past 2 years, past 2, 3 years. Like everything has gone berserk. You cannot have one or the other opinion now. What's happening is every single our lives have moved on to a couple of social media handles and couple of social media sites that we are onto. uh, YouTube, Google, Facebook. Facebook, when I say Facebook, it's Instagram and WhatsApp also. So that's where most of our time is now. That is where we are pushing ourselves onto. And news or information, which is, if you see if you go back and see what the Greek word to inform means, or the older in the older English, if you see what the word to inform means, to inform as in to inform yourself. And that's what, when you talked about,
Yeah.
I talk to myself sometimes, but what is that myself that you're talking to? Because this whole world, this whole internet that is controlled through Google and Facebook and all this, and more so in the universities, at least in the West, that I've come to, and I think it's coming here. The whole the enraging problem of mental health issues. mental health issues, at least in the West, is when you start calling the one who is trying to talk to themselves as, you're going through anxiety, you're going through depression, you're going through, and yes, of course, you're going through anxiety and depression, but anxiety and depression is not other than what your life brings up to you. There were no self-help groups, and there were no like, essentially what self-help is uh, self-helping yourself and not getting self-help from someone else. Like, what we are doing now is reading to other books and listening to other people saying self-help. Like, it's not self-help. Self-help means questioning yourself. That's the basic, like, if you see what the words mean, then that's what has happened. But in the past 2 years, the internet and the entire thing, why the push towards pushing life towards this virtual space where it's a void. It's nothing more than a void. Like, when you're on Instagram or Facebook or anything, yeah, you're not speaking to anyone.
Yeah, and it it's so it is dystopian. And so I have this poem. It's called Monotony, and in it, so I used to have this bad habit of doom scrolling, and in it, at some point I say, before I sleep, I scroll on Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram, in that order, mind you, until Instagram tells me you're all caught up. How does Instagram know?
Yeah.
But I mean, I saw this TED talk by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, say like 6 years, 5 or 6 years ago, where he spoke about the attention economy, which is where I heard about it for the first time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, he's right. That is what the game is about. And as an artist, especially, it's such a conflicted zone, because I need to push my work out there, and
Exactly. Yeah.
and that is how I monetize also.
Yeah.
But it is the same medium which stops me from being the best version, or being the best artist that I can be.
Exactly.
It's
And
it's
it's
more
such a
complicated.
duality. Yeah, it's such a duality that you have with yourself.
It's more complicated than maintaining a balance.
Yeah.
How much should I sleep, or how much should I stay up to read that one book, or should I listen to a podcast or music? I should maintain that balance. It's not that. It's more far-reaching, and
Yeah.
the implications are very, very dire.
Yeah.
And we don't talk about that enough in the
No,
society.
no, no. That's that, and that I think that's a huge problem that everyone is going to face at some point in their lifetime. Like, this moral question of, who am I? Am I the digital version of myself, or am I this person who is living in this reality right now? Like, am I this person who is living in this room right now, or am I the person who I'm trying to make up to the world? Because most of in my experience, most of the things that I've done, there's both things. Like, let's say when I was in Nepal doing the Annapurna trek, everyone looks at the high achievements of what you have done, and you went up that mountain, and you achieved your dreams, and blah blah blah. But no one knows when you fell down, and when you were hurt, when you're completely broken, at one point, when you couldn't walk even like 100 meters forward. And now, like, being an artist, what it means being an artist sometimes, is when you're outside of your comfort zone, you can be any of these things. And one of the major parts in that is being broke. Like, most of the time, like, at least when I was in England, most of the time I was broke as fuck, and it was so difficult to monetize your work, because your work keeps fluctuating. These ideas come from nowhere. Like, if you look deeply into yourself, you cannot tell that this is me who is thinking this. This is just coming and dropping in your mind from somewhere, from some unconscious state, most of the times. And then how do you work on monetizing that? when you're when you're fucking 24, 25, 26, whatever, and this never happened in history, right? Like we are the only generation who is making our past self into a history as we are moving forward into the future. This is so weird, right? Like I don't
It
know what
feels
this
like
is.
yeah, and just about having a personal brand, and sometimes I feel I'm less of a person and more of a human portfolio.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
no, really, and I mean, with the metaverse and everything, the line is only going to get more blurry, because like I first thought about this during the pandemic, where I was like, uh, so I always like to say that, oh, this is me in real life. Who I am on social media is maybe just a part of it, or maybe like a just stuff I want to share with people, or stuff that will get me work. But then most of our expression only was channeled through social media. I'm like, oh, this is also me.
Yeah,
Like not just a part of me, but this is also me.
yeah,
And man, it's just um, everyone's working so many jobs, and like I'm a freelancer, but I work sometimes the entire day, sometimes the entire night. Sometimes I'm doing nothing for a week, and sometimes I don't have time to take a shower for a week.
yeah.
And people are doing full-time jobs and they're being content creators, and I'm like, it we're all chasing something,
Yeah.
um, but
But
I don't know.
isn't this true? Or at least the books that I've read or the artists that I've looked up to, um, most of them, like one of my favorite artists now. When I try to think of it, I cannot remember his name. Allen Ginsberg. He's one of my favorite artists. One because he tells the truth so bluntly, like and it's not just the truth about the state and the government and everyone is trying to spy on you or blah 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 blah. It's about the most primitive part of who you are as a human being, which we never get to address, because what we are doing every single day, what we are trying to do every single day, is to talk about something other than what it means to be a human being, what it means to come to this life and to live in this human form, in this body, and what it means to be alive. We don't get to talk that, because think of it, like most of the times when we are with our friends, and I try to just stay with them, but disconnect myself from the from what they are talking about, because most of the times it's just nonsense, most of the time. Because the only time that I find someone interesting is when they are into some sort of a creative workflow, uh, because then they're outside of the norm, outside of what you have to do every single day. Wake up, do this, blah blah blah, and then come back to the same thing. When, as you say, you're a freelancer right now, when you are someone like a freelancer, you don't have a specific schedule of what you have to do, so you can be experimenting not just with your material but with yourself most of the time. When you go out, you could be looking at a city in a completely different view. You could be looking at you're in a club and you would be looking for stories. You'd be so detached from what is happening actually over there. Like, for everyone else, you would be in a completely different world, and that is what is interesting to me, at least. And that's why um, someone like Allen Ginsberg, his poems, we cannot talk about those things anymore. Like recently, I was talking with one of my friends, and she's a lot into psychedelics, and I like the literature that is coming out on the scientific side of what it is. And because I had a lot of friends in Edinburgh University and in Birmingham and in Oxford University who were towards this, in psychology, in philosophy, and all these fields, and um, I have my brother. He's in epigenetics. He's in Germany. Um, Everyone is so when you have friends on who are like this, you're talking about so many things. You're not talking about just one thing. You're talking about so many things, and you don't get to see that. You don't get to hear that. Don't get to read what the newest study is in let's say psychedelics. You don't get to really understand what it means to have an ego death, or what it means to kill yourself, like kill your personality that you have made for other people. Just kill it completely and start anew, start afresh. And I don't know, it's something that is missing from the environment that we are living in the past like 2 3 years. It's getting more and more strict, or it's getting more and more dumb. The society is getting more and more dumb, and that's why um, you should write more poems.
And I feel no, what you say rings true so much because um, so I have this so I really believe in this one metaphor of marination, and how we should just let things flow sometimes,
Right.
because we all have a platform, and because the algorithm expects us to say something insightful or something interesting, something provocative, something fun every day.
Right.
We feel like we owe it to our audience to come up with things to say every day. And
Mm.
what that's doing is we don't have thought-provoking things to say every day. So we're dumbing it down for our listeners so that
Yeah.
we have something or the other to churn. And see, and you have to allow your brain and the receiver to just process what they've heard, process what you have said,
Yeah.
and what impact, and assess what impact it's had. You have to
Mm.
allow that marination time, and it's all it's going to need is time. When the cooking comes to it, you can experiment. You can be fast, you can be slow, you can experiment with the spices. But when it comes to marination, all you have to do is give it time.
Yeah.
And I feel that the attention economy is really stealing from us, and we must get it back.
Yeah. I mean, at least the algorithm and how it's based and what it wants from us. It's so difficult to explain it to someone who has never heard of anything like that, and who is on WhatsApp or something like that every single day, every single minute, and who thinks that it is normal to be there and not to be distracted by any of that. But mm, what do you think of what do you make of today's politics? What is happening in India right now? What's your view on that?
These are worrying times, to say the least. Um, it's become so post-truth that I don't know where to begin. I don't know
Mm.
which stakeholders should be addressed first. I believe this is going to be a problem that um, we have for some more time, and we're going to have to be resilient as a society. Um, and
Can I
there,
suggest
there
you
will,
a person? Can I suggest you a person? There's a technologist called Jaron Lanier.
yeah,
Uh, if you have you heard of him?
no, I am,
So this is the guy who was essentially the co-founder or something of virtual reality
yeah,
in the 90s, and now he's like a bearded and dreadlocks and everything, and he's such a, like, he looks like a hippie, but he's he's sold his companies to Google and whatnot, but he comes out and talks about this, and what he keeps suggesting every single person every single time is that humanity or intelligence or life or whatever you want to call it, this is the thought that we are having, right? In the end, this is just a, like, if you read the Hindu literature or the Upanishads or whatever, this is just a dream in the end. Like it is more or less, because you don't know what the fuck this is. You try
Yeah.
to think that I understand this is what this is, and I do my meditation and I do my yoga and whatnot, but now you don't know. You don't know what this is. Even scientists don't know. But what he tries to tell is get away from social media, because this is the generation that has been on social media for the longest time. Like I remember when social media came out for me was when I was 14, or maybe I was 12 or 13, I guess, and that's when social media came out for me. So I've been with a phone, I've been with social media for the longest period of time, and we don't know what it means to live without social media for long periods of time. So what he suggests is 6 months, go outside of this entire social media, whatever social media has created for you, go outside of it. Ask yourself this question over and over and over again until you get an answer about it. Like, who are you in the end? Who am I? If we ask this question to ourselves, that's the only way we can get out of this collective human that we have become, because we are so very individual. When you get out of that, there's a collective unconscious and there's an individual unconscious, and when we understand and accept that we are so very individual, that's when we can actually change the world for us, because we are the ones who are making this. We are the ones who are making this world for ourselves. We have free will in the end. We're making it. So it's good. You like Jaron Lanier, and I was going to suggest someone else to you. Will come to my mind, but
Yeah. Someone who helps me also in this context is Yuval Noah Harari, the author of Sapiens. And like I've read some of it, and I've also heard him talk a lot on interviews and podcasts, and so one of his favorite podcasts which comes to mind is one he did with Bill Gates and Rashida Jones. So the podcast came out in 2020, a couple of months into the pandemic, and I think it was titled "Asking Big Questions." Big questions like, when will the pandemic end, or what is the outcome of today's politics, and say police brutality, and how does one stop racism? So big questions like these. How do we approach answering these questions? And Yuval Noah Harari was a guest on one of these episodes, and they asked him, with the pandemic and there was some geopolitical crisis at that time, some impending war. Now we're actually in a war-like situation. War. And he asked,
not we, they. We don't know who is in war. It's
but the ripples of it will be felt here. Gas prices go up, commodities become more expensive, downtrodden communities suffer, and the market's down. And I mean, it seems like, the prices have fallen, they rise back again, but actual lives are impacted. And so nothing in the world happens in isolation, right? So Bill Gates asked him if this is the worst predicament or worst times that humans have ever experienced. And he has this very chill way of saying, no, not statistically. Statistically, in the 14th century, so-and-so had happened, which was way worse. And at this time, this happened, which was way worse. And right now, we're actually in a comfortable space, and there are problems which need to be addressed, but it's nothing like that. So it's calming to hear that also when you contextualize it over such a long period of time, because because we tend to really I we think we like to think I wouldn't say a pity party because that's undermining the this generation's problems. So but thinking that we are at the center of tragedy, and our generation, especially young people, tend to think that they have it the worst, and every young generation feels, and they feel like they should be the instruments of change, and my father's generation felt that, and my grandfather's generation felt that, and we all, and I am feeling that today, and my kids will,
What,
and we'll all go on.
one thing that I feel is when the baton is when politics goes from our generation to our fathers to our grandfathers, and when a grandfather is the prime minister of a country, that's the worst time to be living in, because uh, take Joe Biden. Let's think of Joe Biden, for example. Like we would call Trump a narcissistic guy, which he is, and but he was the one who brought out what how bad the political state is, the entire structure, and what is happening, like the deep state, and whatever is happening in the politics in America, because that is the one that is every other country or economy is impacted when America is impacted. But
Yeah.
when you have an older president like Joe Biden, it's making us weak, because you need newer voices, you need new presidents, you need younger generation to come up and hold the baton, because then you'll have new ideas coming into the circulation of um, what's happening every day.
Yeah.
It cannot happen with older prime ministers, like like we have over here, but
It's much about what you said about your experiences with designing the political campaign, because Biden was perceived as the safe bet, and why America wouldn't elect a woman president.
why
And
America wouldn't elect Bernie Sanders? Why America
Yeah,
wouldn't elect someone who is speaking out the truth, and who is trying to make an actual difference on so many issues? And there's this one thing. I'll bring this one thing up, okay? And this is a weird thing to come up with, but I've said this. I've on this, at least this issue, I'm outspoken, and I don't care what other people think. This is just my stance on what is happening, right? Black Lives Matter happened in started in US, legitimate protest, and what happened in the US, and the ripples were felt in the UK. I went to a Black Lives Matter protest in
yeah,
Cheltenham, where I was living, and then many of my friends came to the protest, and we were there. We were standing in solidarity and everything. And then I came back home, and I had this thought in mind. What we are doing is we are generalizing an entire community, saying that everyone is getting affected by it. Racism does exist. I'm not saying that racism doesn't exist, but what happens when we try to generalize an entire section, when we try to generalize an Indian, when we try to generalize any sort of term that has connotations to it, like white, like black, like what else can I call, any identity that you have,
back home that
women.
on caste, class.
Yeah, caste, class, whatever. When you try to generalize this, that is way worse. And this was the idea I had in my mind, right? And I went back home. I was with my friends, so we were just sitting, and we had this discussion, like what is happening, and everyone was having a plaque or something on the windows, and you could see how the society is divided between the ones who are putting up the plaques and the ones who are not putting up the plaques. So immediately, the ones who are not putting up the plaques are bad, are racist, and the ones who are putting up the plaque are not bad, are not racist. So I asked this question to one of my friends, that what do you feel would happen after a point in time when this the this entire population that we are calling, which has a problem right now, when the economic shift happens and when all of them are rich, all of them have, or let's say all of them are middle class like everyone else is, and they have, they are living a comfortable life. What will happen? Does it stop? Does it stop there? Or does it keep moving on and on and on? And then you will be the ones, like you like the whites will be the ones who will be victimized, and then the cycle keeps on going, over and over and over again. And the other thing that came up is, many of my friends, and were really good people, and um, one question that I had is, yes, okay, we need, similar, uh, in politics at least, we need similar engagement from men and women. But does being in politics mean that you need to have women, or does it mean you need to have, come, what do you call it, the word for it, um, capable leadership? Do you need, do you actually need capable leadership? That's a philosophical question that you will come, and you're stuck at it. Like, at least I'm stuck at it, because I don't hate women. I have, uh, you know I've worked with women entrepreneurs most of my life, like, you know when I was growing up as a photographer. I did that. I've seen the atrocities, and I've lived with rape victims, and I know what it means. But I don't understand this moral philosophical question in the end.
The way I look at it, I think, is this is more of a representation issue. So if our problems don't need, I believe most of our problems don't need great visionaries or people with great capabilities to solve. I think so many of our problems can be solved with empathy, and empathy arises when you
Yes.
have been in a certain situation. So say we spoke about the Black Lives Matter movement, there can be a black man who is poor, and there can be a black man who is rich, but both of them know what it is like to be discriminated on the basis of race. Similarly, when we talk about casteism here, people love to bring up, oh, I have I know a person from, or I have this friend from an oppressed caste, who has a BMW or an Audi,
Yeah.
and almost as if they don't deserve to
On that.
own
Yeah.
material possessions, and but they still know. A poor oppressed caste person and a rich oppressed caste person knows what it is like to be discriminated on the basis of caste,
Yeah.
and so I think where representation comes in is, if the country constitutes of 50% men and 50% women, then does our cabinet look like that? Do our
Mm.
classrooms look like that?
Mm.
Do our housing societies look like that? If
Mm.
there are 14% Muslims in the country, did I, in a class of 50 children, were there 7 students who were Muslim, or
Mm.
was there one, or not? And so many of our problems will be solved by just an accurate representation of um,
I like the
what
point
Bill.
of having empathy. I like the point of when we have enough empathy, and when we have enough love. That is the answer. That will solve most of the questions. But the thing is, the world is so, like, I'll give an example, right? Think of someone, in the British Parliament. Like, I'm not talking about the Indian Parliament or Indian politics, because you know why. But it's just pointless to talk about any of it at this stage, when, yeah, look at what has happened in UP today. Fuck. Okay. First of all, this is just a costume change for if anyone is anyone is looking.
You can do the TikTok transition where
Yeah, there you go. uh, yeah, so we were on UP, so UP elections, and why we were not speaking about what's happening in India now. Well, something that I wanted to add to what we were speaking about yesterday. So I've traveled extensively around India. So many of the times when I speak to a lot of people from Pune, Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, anywhere, Goa, um, I find that there's a gap between a lot of gap between what people think of what India is and what India actually is. And
yeah.
when you actually travel through those small places, like I have a story, right? When I was in Varanasi, I had a relative, and I stayed with two of my friends over there with one of my relatives, and he gave us a car and a driver to go out with. So we were out, and he was showing us around the place in close by Varanasi. It's a small village. I can't remember the name, but he basically took us to his village and showed us what it's like to be living in a UP village. And it's nothing like what you can imagine what India is like. It's a completely different picture of India that you see when you travel through those places. And so after seeing what is happening in today's politics and where we actually left yesterday, there is a part of me which was optimistic for a while. But now it's growing more into the pessimism, or even not into pessimistic side. It's just about leaving politics behind is the only way that we can go forward. um, there is that is have voluntarily taking a step out of politics and saying that no, I don't want to, because there's a difference. Because when we vote, this is just my opinion, right? Like there's a difference between when we vote, then we don't have the right to say anything because we have already voted, and then that makes us the culprit as well. But when you don't vote and you still know what is happening, and you knowingly don't vote and you just abstain from everything, uh, you see the society in like a sociologist view, or you see the society like an anthropologist, because you can step out of the politics, you can step out of the society and see where the society is leading. And when you do that, you realize that India is not really a democracy. India was never really a democracy. We like to think, because we were taught in school, we were taught we are being taught in through news and phones and Instagram and wherever. We're being taught that India is a democracy. But what the word democracy means, at least in Greek, demos means people, and kratos means rule. So it's people's rule. But when you see how it's called in Hindi or in Marathi, it's called Rajniti, or in Marathi it's
Okay.
called Rajeshai.
Hmm.
Or that does not mean democracy. Like we never really appropriated the words properly. We never gave it a context around what the words were, and we just got that Rajeshai from what it was before. Like so many leaders that were before us, we just got that, and we just transitioned them into these new leaders that we have today. And so for me, nothing has changed. For me, um, if you if you see, there's the India that is being portrayed to us, and then there is India that is within this India, which has a more spiritual slash which is hopeful, at least, like the India which is hopeful, which you see in the villages.
I'm
um
glad you mentioned hope.
yeah, yeah. But that is the India that I'm most interested in, because that is the India that you get to read in Tagore. If you've read any of the Rabindranath Tagore's books, poems, he mentions that India, because um, you can only see it if you actually witness it, and if you have actually been there. That is mentioned in Mahatma Gandhi's books. Because these people have actually lived that India. And many other people, or Ambedkar, many other people only talk about India as in the ideological state that they want, which is religious. And there's a difference between religious aspect of anything and a spiritual aspect of anything. And that's the only reason why I like the founders of democracy, let's say Plato, Socrates. Socrates was killed in the end by the state, by the church state, because he was so against anything, and he dared to say that man is free, and man can have his own free thoughts. And again, not taking man as in man, it's just the time they were living in. But
Yeah,
they dared to say that we are free as individuals, and we can have free thought, and um, there is a lineage to why they spoke of that. There is a lineage of spirituality before the thoughts come to their mind. There is a lineage of Eleusinian mysteries, if you have heard of them, Greek Eleusinian mysteries, where people were initiated. And that's where like I'm more interested into the thought that comes, the mind that brings the thought in you. And
yeah.
yeah.
And the divide is very apparent. I mean, the real in India at the grassroots level, and the one which we see, like just a subset of which we see around us or online. So about like 2 years ago, when lockdown was just imposed, and we were in the first wave of the pandemic, I used to. We all had this habit of doom scrolling and just being online. And while on Twitter, I used to invariably by one way or the other, find myself on Kangana Ranaut's page, and I'm like, this is such hateful language, and I see what's happening. And if you look at what's trending on Twitter, I'm like, oh man, this is awful. Is this how the country thinks? And it took time, it took more reading, it took a better curation of my timeline to see this is not the pulse of the country.
Yeah.
It takes just a bot army to make to trend something, but the pulse of the country thinks about very different things. And it's not all our priorities are not all perfect. We don't all prioritize healthcare and education. We see petrol prices soaring. We see the rupee getting weaker by the day. But I mean, I feel we're all part of the system, and say I believe we should vote because, albeit imperfect, this system is what we are a part of. And I mean, my conscience will take a hit if I don't. And no democracy is a pure democracy. I mean, there are systems. We don't have examples of a pure democracy or communism done in the way maybe Marx would have envisioned it. But I feel so we still contribute to the economy, right? We still are productive enterprises. We still pay taxes. So I mean, why I liked you mentioning hope also, because like we're talking about dystopia and time seeming bleak. So I was having this conversation with a friend recently where we were talking about our belief system, how we practice faith. Do we believe in religion? And I like to think that I've been walking towards a path where I've been becoming more religious slowly. not in one particular way or to one particular god, but just praying more. And
Spiritual, that's a better word for that.
yeah, spiritual, but also religious.
Mm,
I mean, there are figures in my head. There are certain traditional practices which
mm,
I do partake in.
mm,
So I'm like, why do I do this? So this is what I came up with is, believing that there is no science to back that there is a God. If I believe in that versus if I believe in a higher power, what makes me like, what is the consequence of that belief? If I am hopeful, will I be happier? Or if I am like, nothing has an order, everything is chaotic and it all happens randomly, does that make me act in a more efficient way? And personally, for me, I act. I am happier and I act in a far more motivated and thought-driven way when I have something to believe in. When I think I don't have all the power, where there is something beyond.
yeah.
I attended this workshop recently, which was sound, body, and mind. And the instructor said that, so she was talking about yoga, and she said, one of the great Indian gurus, yoga practitioners, Deshamacharya, I think, he defines yoga as the alignment or coming together of the body, the spirit, and the consciousness. And then his son, I think, Krishnamacharya or something, he defined it, he just added something to the definition. It is the coming together of the body, the spirit, the consciousness, and something else. So what is that something else?
Mm,
And having that belief makes me act in a more um, um, it gives me hope, and it helps me.
something to push you
um,
forward.
yeah, and I very much say that in context of today's political environment also, is I mean, I have little to no control over what is going to happen. We're all trying to do our part. We can do much more,
Mm,
but with democracy, it is the game of numbers. And right now, the country is still very, very in love with a particular leader.
mhm.
And then that may change soon, or it may take some time. But I think uh, hope is what we need.
Yeah, hope is what we need in the end. That's the only thing that can endure an entire society to move forward. Something that I had in mind, other than that, is this entire structure that we are into. Like something that I learned when I was in England, at least, where democracy still works as it should, where you have representation and where you have the basic structure at least is there in place. What I got the thought out of that system is, in the end, is just in our heads. Like you're a citizen, I'm a citizen, anyone else who is contesting for something is a citizen. So in the end, all of these things are just in our heads, and because we uh, align with those things, we believe in those things. That is why they actually happen in day-to-day life. But uh, the interesting part that you said, that you're turning towards religiousness or spirituality or whatever you want to call it, that is the most interesting part in all this, because I see that a large number of people are turning their heads and saying, this is vicious, I don't want that, this is bad, this is bad for my mental health, this is bad for me physically, because I'm getting exerted a lot, thinking about what I have to think and what is happening in front of me. Like for example, I'm trying to do something in my city and then in my village where my grandparents stay. So for the past 2 months, the only thing that I have been able to push is the ideas, the basic ideas, which would be so basic, so primitive when it comes to what it means to be in a democracy. I'm just trying to push it through taking gram sabhas and bringing the sarpanch in and bringing the villagers in and giving them
Yeah.
ideas of what it is like to have a voice, what it is like to know how the hierarchy works, how the structure works, because it's a beautiful structure in place, but you just don't know how to use it. And the other thing is, the ones who are using it on for their advantage and not for the people's advantage. So my effort for the last 2-3 months was just to make them understand what that is. And if we are so far behind, then we have so far ahead to go. We have, too much work to do. And I think the job of an artist, whether you like the political structure or not, is to still speak out if there is something wrong happening, and that's the only thing that we can do. So um, yeah, if you would like to say anything on that, and then
Yeah.
yeah.
Something you said in the beginning about people moving away from religion. I'd just like to put that in what context. I mean, I'm moving towards religion.
Mm,
Is Okay. So I was born in Nagpur, and I lived there for 6 years until I moved to Mumbai with my family. And when I came here, life was very different, and people were very different. And uh, I mean, like a town or a small city is very different than Mumbai, and I was
yeah.
terribly homesick. And I used to cry every day before going to school, and I just had a very hard time. So what my mom used to do is she used to read me shlokas out of her. She used to read pothi, as we say in
Mm,
Marathi, and
yeah.
she used to read stotras and mantras, and it really gave me hope.
Wait, are you
And
are you a Maharashtrian, like proper Marathi?
yeah.
Hi, ek number.
Mast. But it gave me so much hope. And my mom used to read something to me, and she's like, okay, what do you understand? And I say, I think this says that God is always behind me, and whatever I do, he's looking out for me. And that gave me an insurmountable amount of hope. And that idea of God is very different than the idea of God or religion that our political leaders
Yeah.
are spreading and propagating, and not organized religion, but faith being something that's very personal, and something um, that becomes your shining light even when you are at your lowest. That is a um, that is the idea of religion that I want to see, or
Mm,
spirituality.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's incredible scientific literature, at least on this topic, because at the start I talked to you about psychedelics and spirituality, which I'm really interested in right now, just because of the scientific literature that is coming out with it. And the scientific literature around this is so crystal clear, and it says that um, the only thing that can make human beings go forward in their life and make them um, go away from their anxiety and depression and or, anything, is a purpose, a good strong purpose in their life, and something in their mind to look forward to, and be it whatever, be it God, be it I want to be something or anything. And that's the only way we can move forward, at least in these times. So yeah. um
Yeah, I mean, not to undermine any mental illnesses, because I've also been at that juncture where so honestly, say a couple of months ago, I was terribly ill mentally, and I was in a bad situation, and nothing seemed to help. And that's when I learned something very interesting about being an artist. Was that at that point, art did not help me. I didn't go to art, and I didn't feel I was spoken to. I didn't feel like creating art. I didn't feel like channeling those energies into art. What helped me was people,
Family.
my
Yeah.
friends and
Friends.
family.
Yes.
Yeah, and because I love art, and it comes out of a very happy place, sometimes out of morose, sometimes out of rage,
Yeah.
and art can be very different things, but at the end of the day, when you're down, people is what we need, and that
Of
is what I
course.
learned during that time. And yeah, I mean, a purpose definitely helps. And in the modern times, where we're realizing how exploitative our workplaces can be, where we're realizing the gaps in our system, and how our system favors the rich, and only empowers those who have power to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it directly affects the mental health of so many of us.
Yeah.
So, in that light, also, it stands true.
With that, I think it's the best time to stop the podcast. But uh, this was a really good talk, and I learned a lot from you. And yeah, on that note, what do you think of this podcast? Because this is I'm slowly starting to promote this from other people. I don't know.
No, I absolutely loved being a part of it, and I learned so much from you. And this was such a riveting conversation. And yes, please, let's do this again, hopefully in person.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love being a
Also,
part of it, and listen to more. I would love to listen to more episodes with other
yeah.
guests.
Yeah, there's actually some really good people coming up. You'd love them as well. And the first two, they're good. Both of them are really good friends of mine, Chris, and the first one was with Frank sir. So if you haven't watched it, then you should. But something else. I'm doing a coast to coast. I'm going to walk 1,500 kilometers, starting from this coast, from the west coast to the east coast. And I'm going to do this at least for 2 months, is what I'm thinking. And this is a long-term documentary project that I want to do about farmer suicides and the farming crisis that is happening in India right now. And no one is talking about it. And me being a photographer, I want to cover that entire crisis. And the I'm also going to walk through the Adivasi region, like the some of the Chhattisgarh area. So I'm through this podcast as well. I'm trying to self-fund it, or obviously on Instagram. But if you'd like to ask people to subscribe to this channel and help me find some more donations or sponsors for that as well, I'd be happy.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to help you out. And to anyone listening, I've seen Ashutosh's work, and it's incredible. And he really has things to say, and he deeply cares about the issues out there. And this seems like one that's definitely worth supporting. So please subscribe to his channel. If there's any way to contribute, for the listeners to contribute, please go ahead and do so. And yeah, keep listening.
All right, bro. That's good. Right, man. What are you going to do next?
I have a couple of acting gigs coming up. There's a short film, couple of ads happening. So I'm doing that. I'm working on a couple of performance pieces. I'm working on a couple of poems, and like a long format poetry thing, which
Mm,
I might do real soon. So
nice.
yeah, excited for that.
Nice. That was the end to the third podcast. I hope all of you liked it. And now I'm going to discuss about my upcoming project, and I'm going to make a plea for all of you out there who are either watching this on YouTube or listening to this on Spotify. So uh, right now would be the time to exit if you're not looking forward to it. But if anyone who wants to listen can stay. Uh, so I'm leaving in about a month's time to walk 1600 kilometers roughly from the west coast of India, that is from Arabian Sea, to the east coast of India, that is Bay of Bengal. And I'm going to walk from 4 different states, that is Maharashtra, Telangana, Chhattisgarh, and Odisha. And throughout that entire walking, I'm going to document the farming crisis that is happening in India, and which is hardly getting any notice around the world. And I'm interested in knowing how people live their life in the rural areas, and there are some parts in Chhattisgarh and many smaller areas around the middle part of India, where people still kind of live a very primitive lifestyle, and it's so very different to what we live in the cities and in metropolitan areas. Um, so I hope I get the support out of the internet, because I have dedicated myself to doing this, and not working for the society in a weird way. So I hope I get some support out of this. So if you haven't watched the previous videos, then here are somewhere the links to it, and you can watch it over there. You can, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can subscribe to it, and like it, and press the bell icon. And if you're on watching this on Spotify, then you can just like it over there, download it, and share it with your friends if you can. And if you want to help me, or if you want to support me for the next project that I'm doing about the farming crisis, what you can do is I'll add links over here, or some barcode stickers somewhere around here, and you can donate either, or send me some funding if you want to. That way I can quickly start this project, which is in the research phase for the last 2-3 months, or maybe more. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to the next podcast, which is going to come out the next full moon. And it's been a streak. It's been 3 full moons that we have been together over here, uploading podcasts and growing together, and all the messages and all the love that I've got until now is overwhelming. So I thank you a lot.